Well, good afternoon, and this is a nice late July day, and this happens to be video 40 from my first 100 videos for the Augmiworld channel, where I am pulling together what I keep calling kind of a paradigm. Okay, so what I've got in front of me right here on this table is what I consider to be necessary to do adequate TikTok videos, YouTube videos, coloring page, comics, and a few other things. I'm also working on a phone app and an approach to matrix codes, which I'll show kind of here. This is very primitive. I'm doing this about as primitive as I can because I'm just not very good at tech. I'm very, very good at drawing and coming up with ideas. What this QR code is for is this is like part of the plan or part of what I'm working on. I'm convinced that large screen television, Zoom meetings, coloring pages, QR codes, and the rest of it can come together in a very interesting fashion. And I'm working on a phone app for what can be called custom codes to do a variety of interesting things. But I'm doing it from a position of low tech and actually not having a whole lot of money because, well, I'm owed a bunch of money, but I'm not getting paid any of the money that I'm owed, and I'm not having a whole lot of success connecting with people who I guess would like to buy some exceptional contemporary art. Okay, let's do this. So, anyway, I consider this to be exceptional contemporary art because basically this is actually pretty cool. Now, this QR code will take you to a Wikipedia article that is about camera-ready art, and that is where I'm coming from. What could be cool? We can call this a tutorial. I'm going to show people, I guess, kind of how I'm doing things. And this video may be a little long, but we can put this in the corner for right now. This is the area here, defined by this black line, of more or less desktop area that makes up this video. And these are, right here, three subjects I'm going to cover with you. Okay, so what I need is, I'm going to do a crowdfunding campaign. I need consistent interest in what amounts to a method that I see clearly for moving forward with, I guess, the matrix code format, phone apps, how phones connect to, as mobile devices, to a variety of technology, the most important one being the larger format of television and how that's playing into education. Then what I have as product is I have coloring pages, for instance, and comics, and then where I'm going with original art is I'm very interested in what we call graphic art, and what I'm interested in for fun is the landscape of NFTs, which is a very interesting kind of form of, in my opinion, semi-ludicrous currency. Anyhow, these three roughs are for what happens in this area, and I guess to keep things fairly clean, we should start with this. This area here is TikTok, or basically Instagram, TikTok. This is a 16:9 aspect ratio that basically is good for doing smartphones, as we know them now, kind of graphic art. I've been doing quick draw videos, more or less, because they seem to be kind of fun. I like doing them. So here I'll just show you what will go into one of these areas. And we could call this kind of a how to draw kind of thing, I guess, a little bit. So I am taking TikTok videos and kind of establishing a comic on TikTok with quick draw videos. And the reason I'm doing that is because I haven't seen anybody else really do it, but then I'm kind of ignorant. But the landscape that I have is actually kind of fun. Now, this isn't just existing in its own little land. I'm very interested, for instance, in 3D printing. And 3D printing is where, I guess we could call it graphic technology and the future kind of come together. Here, so let's pretend this is a spaceship, kind of going in perspective. Okay, and I'm just doing this kind of quick. Anyway, so I have a series of coloring pages, comic stories, and things like that, which I think are kind of interesting. I haven't ever watched The Expanse. I've heard that it's good, but I'm interested in that whole world of becoming a species that actually is out there in the solar system. That's going to be really interesting. A big part of my story are these planetoids that I've got, which are hollow, which what they do is they have kind of they kind of go like this. The reason I like them is because in the world of colorization, in the world of 3D modeling, what would happen is light would go through them in a really interesting fashion, especially if there were a bunch of them, right? And so I created this whole fantasy land called Fictional Galaxies, which kind of plays off of the time warp we've been in since the late 70s with, oh, well, maybe even the 60s with Star Trek, where we, it's a kind of a nice time warp, but Disney took it over, so that's kind of too bad. It's not so original anymore. It used to be kind of a, how would we put it, sanctuary for original thinkers. Okay, now, so anyway, so here's something kind of from that landscape. Anyway, what I'm doing is this is all original art, and I'm selling it, if anybody's interested in buying it. And then I'm doing several crowdfunding campaigns. One is for the phone app, and the other is for a thing I call Schedule a Difference. Schedule a Difference is this basically a new social networking kind of approach, which is based on the idea that we need to schedule a difference to this sort of crazy, oh, I don't know what to call it, oil bankrupt agenda that we're on. Oil is highly efficient for all kinds of things, but the issue is, well, can't we do hybrid, for instance, and prepare for global warming? And then what I do is touch this up. So this would make a great TikTok video, right? The reason I'm showing you this kind of how to draw thing is, well, one, this is video number 40. I'm very happy with how things have kind of come together. And so this motif really doesn't change. I came up with this like, it's going to be 10 years, soon, maybe. But I'm completely happy with it. I think that the fictional galaxies, planetoid things is super cool. It's a lot younger than Star Wars. Anyway, and then I've added a few things to it. But anyway, think of these as being things that can be printed on 3D printers, okay? And also think of this as being something that can be put into a TikTok video, right? Okay, so I'm showing you that part of what we call production. Now, in coloring page land, or whatever, I'm doing something which I call storyboard coloring page. And I'm interested in how QR codes can relate to the storyboard approach to all kinds of things that have to do with digital files, videos, filmmaking, and architectural rendering, and all kinds of those things. Anyway, think storyboard coloring page. Anyway, we'll take this out of here for now. And put this maybe up here. Okay. So we're working kind of front to back here. Okay, so that's the aspect ratio for TikTok. Now let's say that we were going to do a TikTok video that would have like a very, very simple kind of storyboard animation thing going on. So if you notice, 11 by 17 sheets fit kind of nicely into this. And so what happens is you just do a stack of whatever the story is. I may do some of these today. And for instance, we'll just have this is one of my recurring characters. It's a robo-car. And I have a bunch of scenarios. And one of them is called a smartphone story. And a smartphone story fits into the schedule of difference kind of approach to things, where the story is that the smartphones of the world rebel. The reason that they do that is because of the stupidity of human behavior, which is readily apparent these days. Anyway, so what happens here is quickly you do up some storyboard elements, right? Okay. This one being the car. You keep them kind of simple, right? And this is for the world of TikTok, or this is for the world of wherever the storyboard stuff kind of happens. The idea is that people will be looking at this on their phones. So this robo-car is going through a sci-fi landscape. Okay, neat. But what happens with this? Well, what we do is we have a stack of these guys. And pretty much on a beat in the video, we put a stack of these in the area defined by the aspect ratio frame. And instead of spending a whole bunch of time animating GIFs and doing things like that, what we do is we just simply put this in front of the camera. We have a stack of about 20. And then what we do is on the beat, more or less, it's 20 per minute. Duh, 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 duh. Okay, so what you do then is you cut this area out, you put it on TikTok, and what you've just done is a very primitive animated GIF kind of storyboard video. Now, working front to back, what we're doing is we're looking at this larger area here. What my approach to doing these videos is to have a stack of these made, and then that means that in the course of a day, maybe I can do a certain number of videos, and all of the stuff is actually prepped. So you prep the stuff first, you pull it together, and then you do this. Now, this is the landscape area defined by a normal video. And what I'm doing with this is we can very kind of quickly show the beginning for this video of what could be called kind of one of these epic pieces. Now, in video editing, you can move the frame around. I don't know if you're familiar with Ken Burns and how he did videos, but you can do a lot in production art with moving the frame around as opposed to moving the camera around. So very quickly what I'm doing is I'm laying out a landscape. It would be interesting to doing something like that. Now, all of the things that are in these videos, or not all of them, but a great many of them, are kind of like toys, trinkets that can be made in 3D printing, or they can become assets that are in 3D rendering programs or 3D modeling programs, sort of for VR and or AR. So right here, I'm going to show you some tricks for how to draw water really quick. So this is a kind of a catamaran spaceship that's sitting on water. Okay. Great. And it has kind of this thing going on, like so. Kind of this thing going on, right? This is part of our story. But when you're drawing water, draw your lines like this, and draw other lines kind of going like this, right? And then what happens is you kind of draw white lines, kind of white caps sort of along these lines. Okay, and then you draw curved lines showing how the water. I'm saving this drawing for later today or later in this production routine. Basically what I'm going to do is do a video of doing this drawing. I wanted to assemble it now. So this catamaran spaceship is sitting here. This is on one of the planetoids. And if you remember, they're hollow, so they come in a variety of sizes. So these characters here, with their spaceships, are on the water. They'll be on the inside of one of the planets. And the reason this is interesting is because I believe that we're heading towards a space, kind of a coloring pages and other things, where it's going to be very, very, very easy to have interactive, either with Zoom meetings or whatever. You can see it with the metaverse, where you have interactive worlds that, you can put your VR headset on and you're interacting in one of the spaces. This would be a very fun plan to have going on. Okay, so this is kind of like a space yacht, I suppose, hovering over this, right? And then coming down from the top of the planet far away is a stalactite. I hope I said that right. One of those things, those pointy things you find in caves, this kind of comes down from the roof far above. And there's architecture built into this. Okay. Now the reason I'm just showing off this is because it's kind of like an adequate world to show for this approach. Think of this approach as being used for other things. You know, you could use this approach. This is what I mean by camera ready. The editing abilities now for what gets put into the system kind of render a lot of the old methodologies kind of obsolete. I'm of the opinion that video editing is a new form of programming, especially with the QR codes, but then that makes me kind of a lonely cartoonist with a bunch of crazy theories. Anyway, but the storyboard coloring page, for instance, okay, so here's one of our productions, right? And here's a QR code. Okay, so someplace in the production. Now remember, the frames move around in production, right? That's kind of fun. Now what I'm doing with TikTok and Augmiworld, which is the channel, is they're the first steps towards putting together what I could call, kind of a production company and kind of a life philosophy, because I think that the schedule a difference thing now is like the most important language aspect or language element of the human race on Earth. It's interesting how language is technology. And so what we really have is we have a global technology issue with instrumentality, I suppose, and the human race. What we use to get things done. And we like to trick ourselves, that's my opinion. We like to make things overly clever. Now this is kind of cute. I mean, I can't say that this isn't, yeah, this is kind of nerdy. Nothing wrong with being nerdy and all the rest of it. But scheduling kind of makes things simple. It's sort of like, well, you either do it or you don't. Or you either make room for it or you don't. Or you either postpone it or you don't. Now this issue of preparing for climate change, for instance, well, as a species, we're either going to do it or we're not. And disaster relief from now on is going to have to be green, right? You don't want to make the situation worse, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I like to schedule a difference approach. The goal in schedule a difference is to get 1% of the world's phones trending something of importance, either every week or once a year or whatever. It's kind of inspired by poor Greta, who tried to have some climate strikes and some other things. And the basic premise is that, especially with telephony, if we don't do it, you're going to have to do it with phones. It's that simple. You're going to have to do it. We're going to have to talk on the phones about scheduling a difference. So anyway, enough said. And that's where the matrix code theory and other stuff comes. Okay, so our landscape. So this, I don't know if this is a star system or a galaxy. Anyway, this is kind of fun. This is a spiraling star system. Here. Okay, well, my sun. Okay. And what we've got is something to work on, something to play with. That will make these videos interesting, right? Now, I have stories for these landscapes. I mean, they aren't landscapes without stories. One of the sad things about, for instance, Halo is it had like one of the coolest background stories in the universe, and then it becomes a first shooter game, like bang, 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 bang. Like, wow, okay, fine, another first shooter game. I couldn't care less about first shooter games. I like playing Go and chess. That's kind of more fun for me. First shooter games, no thanks. Anyway, enough said about first shooter games. Now, so what happens is you're noticing here, if you're noticing, that these are fairly simple elements. Okay, and so to run through this again, Dave has a phone app based on matrix code that he's crowdfunding for, right? That works first in our universe with coloring pages and comic panels and storyboards, right? With one of the first areas of evolution, I suppose, being what is Zoom becoming in our world and what can be called a language and education crisis, especially here in the United States. And I won't go on and on and on about that, but if you're an intelligent parent or an intelligent offspring or student or whatever you are right now, you know that we have a minor crisis of language, communication, and education. So anyway, one of the things that's going to happen is lots more Zoom meetings, especially if we go to Mars. This is not Mars, but anyway, so that's one thing that David is crowdfunding for. And the other thing is schedule a difference. And the other thing is, I suppose, for what could be called an interesting studio for producing a great deal of this approach. And you say, well, that's no big deal. But this is a very good, in my opinion, approach to the camera-ready paradigm. Okay. So, what I've done here is I kind of put these things together. Now, do I want to feature anything in all this? No, I think this is good enough for now because that'll make the next video interesting. So think QR code. Here we go. We're going to go the opposite direction now. Landscape. Okay, landscape, which you can put a video frame in and edit and do things with. Very simple. It's more or less hand-drawn. It's just kind of like right there. Matrix code, maybe put into a small frame. This is for large screen television, so when you're sitting there, and you're like sitting there with your phone, you can interact with the production of what's going on. Then we go, this was our approach to animation or storyboarding, right? Which is kind of simple, which is the stack content put onto an aspect ratio frame. Okay, here's our aspect ratio frame with nothing in it. Okay, get out of here. Okay, and then so you stack a bunch of these guys up, and you have this going on. Well, you have a version of this in here somewhere. So anyway, you think, etc. Nice, straightforward, simple. Then this is for TikTok in general. This is like a frame, kind of showing off that. You can see how that kind of goes together. Wing. Oop, I lost my QR code. So there we are. So why don't we put you guys together in the same frame? Okay, that was kind of a long video, but this is video 40 of the first 100 videos, putting together the Augmiworld channel. So subscribe to the Augmiworld channel, pay attention to the TikTok videos, when the crowdfunding comes along, or there's already a schedule of difference page on Facebook that really has nothing on it. But these things are moving towards what will amount to, I would like to have a server. What the server is for steady URLs for the Matrix Code phone app and a couple of other things. But anyway, there's a whole little wish list here. But think very simple production company with enough going on to be interesting for a while. And honestly, think about fictional galaxies and fantasy are very nice. Think of scheduling difference. Okay, so that's it. That's video 40. How long does that take? Let's see what we got, and we'll stop recording. Thank you.